Hello and welcome back to the broadcast. My name is Naj, and today, if you are someone who thinks graphics are the most important part of a video game, then oh boy have I got news for you, because Bright Memory Infinite may just be your new favourite game. It is bloody gorgeous, and perhaps wise words I should probably tell myself every now and then, which I am now passing on to you, is don't always judge a book by its cover. Just because it looks all fancy with graphics if personified, that would be a waifu with big old titties and a fat ass, metaphorically and, well, literally, doesn't mean it's gonna satisfy you. Excuse my French, amigos, but this game is a fucking insult. Whoa. Alright, let's take a step back. 2 years ago, one man known as FYQD launched what was being dubbed as Bright Memory Episode 1, an early access title that formed the prologue of what was yet to come that, again, was developed by one man on Unreal Engine 4 in his spare time. Now before I go any further with this, I do have to give credit where credit is due. Both the initial release and the full game we have now were created by this one guy riding solo. That is an incredibly impressive feat, and this guy's future is, well, bright, no pun intended, so hats off to him. But I am here to review a video game, not someone's resume, and perhaps I'm judging this game too much on my lasting impression it left me with. But to quote another wise man, my disappointment is immeasurable. Fair warning here, there are going to be a couple of spoilers in this video, but to be honest with you, you don't have much to fear, as the spoilers here are about as shocking as finding out your doner kebab is only made up of about 50% meat. I think it is also fair to say that anyone who bought the Early Access Episode 1 for £7 prior to Bright Memory Infinite's launch got a copy of the full game title for free, myself included. If you are one of those people, then chances are you've already played this game and formed your own opinion of it, but stick around and hear mine, and why not click that subscribe button if you want to see more. And for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, then I guess this review is mainly for you, as if you decide to pick this up now, it will cost you just shy of £16. If you want the whole package, so both parts, the prologue and the main game, then that will pop that up to about £21. So your kind of normal indie price for an indie game. For this review I did play through both the prologue and the full release, so let's take a quick look back at what came before. In an unspecified time and place, we begin our story as Shelia, who has us breaking into some sort of lab and throws us straight into the action, taking out some kind of military personnel when our big bad villain named Carter intercepts Sheila playing with a keyboard. I mean, come on, do you know anyone named Carter who didn't turn out to be a cant? Before anyone can say Jumanji, everyone is sucked into a big black hole to awake on some distant land, although Shelia seems to think it must be that floating island near the North Pole.
Could this be the floating island hidden at the North Pole?
You know, that one. Everyone seems to be after some artifact that we hope the Doctor can help us with before we lose it to the depths of a watery cave, and of course we can only hope that Wake is okay.
I hope Wake's okay.
Who these people are, I haven't the slightest clue. All I know is I've got to shoot, hack and slash my way through hordes of various enemies. And when I say various enemies, I mean literal enemies from various different genres that make no sense whatsoever they be in the same game. From medieval knights, gobbing bats, tigers crossed with that spitting dinosaur from Jurassic Park, elite teleporting soldiers, these weird lizard people, and all this coming at you whilst lighting a Dark Souls bonfire along the way. What? There is absolutely no context to it whatsoever. It felt like someone channel hopping on a Thursday morning at 3 AM to then have a dream mixed up of all the shite TV they saw seconds of, to wake up and think, damn, this would make a damn fine video game, and, well, actually made it. In fact, it actually kind of reminded me of a game that launched back in 2008 called Legendary, which saw someone open Pandora's box to release a load of mythical creatures into New York, and, well, shit, you probably don't want to hear any game being compared to that, because most people would probably rather die the death of 1,000 snake bites than play that abomination. A first-person shoot-'em-up hack and slash that felt like a combination of games like Devil May Cry and Bayonetta crossed with Crysis and Shadow Warrior. A bizarre combination, but one that had a very solid foundation, combining firearms and sword combat to make for some pretty satisfying combo-focused gameplay that had a few performance issues and an incredibly short runtime of around 30 minutes, although it did encourage multiple playthroughs with the New Game Plus modes to perfect your moves whilst we waited for the full release. Despite the nonsensical drivel and somewhat unpolished mechanics, it intrigued me very much and I craved two things. More of that awesome gameplay, but fleshed out and polished. I mean, this one boss fight against the Lost Forest Lord was intense and I couldn't wait for more of that. And secondly, I wanted some damn answers as to what was going on in this outlandish world. And here we are now, 2 years later with the full release, Bright Memory Infinite. Oh boy. Look how awesome this thing could have been. played this directly after the prologue, and let me tell you that this is pretty much in every way an improvement over that game, or that part of the game. The 2 years spent on development between that game's release and now was spent wisely, and you can tell a lot of passion and hard work went into making this. Unlike the prologue, this game starts in what appears to be a futuristic Japan, as opposed to the mythical land, so in a way I guess this game is more of a prologue than the prologue, but to be honest it had more of an interesting setup with a more comprehensive structure, as it gave the illusion this would be a more focused direction, and it did feel that way for a while. We again take control of Shelia, who we don't really know much about other than she works for the SRO, whatever that is, and she is called in on a mission by General Chen to investigate some crazy weather that they believe is related to some strange phenomenon. Dropping in from the sky via airship, another team have also arrived on the scene led by General Lin, who don't seem to be a very friendly bunch. At the centre of it all is a mysterious black hole sucking in the surroundings, and our mission is to infiltrate and find out exactly what is going on. So we have an objective this time, but still don't really know what the hell was going on, but hey, at least I looked badass trying to find out. As I said earlier, this game's presentation is some of the best I've seen. I played this game on an RTX 360 Ti with ray tracing enabled, and it looks absolutely beautiful. The weather effects, the environments, the water, that damn water, looks fantastic and makes for an incredibly immersive experience. The leaves blowing in the gusts of wind, the lighting effects from the lightning and gunfire, it is incredible to think that one guy created this all. Unfortunately, it doesn't always run as well as it looks. Frame drops occurred during some larger scale fights, and whenever I died, I spawned back into some drop dead frame rates. The stutter was off the charts, and it was incredibly disorientating.
Keep me and I'll tell you.
You sound confident.
Once I turned down the quality settings a little, it did resolve that mostly, but there were still a few hiccups here and there. But the actual game world is somewhat unique in merging together contemporary and ancient Japanese architecture with its ancient design in its levels and enemies you'll be facing with an overlaying futuristic aesthetic. It is very pleasing to rampage through, although I don't think I've ever faced so many invisible walls in such a small area before. Open lands just stop. Rooftops I wanted to use to my tactical advantage, I just couldn't get on because the game wanted me to go down a very specific path. There was no creativity in how to approach these levels as a player, all I could do was what the game wanted me to. It is then lucky that the combat is just so slick when you're not held back by annoyingly forced on the rails sections or bugs. The focus on gunplay and sword combat makes for some excellent combat encounters, and it does indeed feel very much like a more seriously toned Shadow Warrior or a first-person Devil May Cry, which is just as badass as it sounds. At the start of our story, we are eased in a little more, whereas the prologue felt like we had been dropped straight into the middle of someone else's saved game, so everything that was presented to me in the prologue is pretty much erased, resetting the stage to build up to the chaos as opposed to dropping us straight into it. As we arrive, we are greeted by General Lin's goons, and the combat is vastly improved, being more responsive and varied. There are 4 weapons to collect in the game: a machine gun, a shotgun, an auto pistol that fires electrified ricocheting bullets, which is pretty badass, and a sniper rifle. All weapons have a secondary fire mode that results in something fiery and explosive, and I don't just mean your poo-poo after too many hot wings. The weapons are super punchy, and I am a sucker for awesome reload animations. Just so satisfying whipping out that clip and slapping in a new one with such elegance. There are a variety of these military types, those of just your standard machine guns, close encounters with shotguns, snipers, and the bigger boys who just come running at you with their fists and spears, or electrical prodders and shields. As we get further into the game, the black hole starts pulsing, sending shockwaves through the land, and I'm sure there's another bowel movements joke in there somewhere, but what happens each time is some strange, dead, medieval-like soldiers arrive on the scene as if teleported in from somewhere. Maybe the island near the North Pole, and the game transforms from a shooter into a hack and slash. Equipped with a sword, we can parry these Necro Knights, flick them up in the air, slash them to our heart's content. Mix that in with some quality shooting mechanics, fast-paced movements with our double jump and dash abilities, and an exo arm that is capable of pulling in enemies, imploding them with a shot blast and piling down the heavens with your mighty fist. The combat is fast, fluid, and chaotic. In fact, I found it to be brilliant at times. Many encounters required me to think on my feet and juggle a number of threats. These big brute boys charging me whilst I was being shot at. bastards with fire arrows. I had the time when to parry the big boy's attacks to stagger him, to then allow me enough time to deflect the incoming projectile straight back. Yes, you can deflect incoming gunshots and arrows, and if timed perfectly, it will send them straight back to sender like all those bills addressed to that person who definitely doesn't live at your address anymore. It does take a little time to master the combat, but when I did, it is incredibly satisfying and pretty much non-stop throughout the entire playthrough, so then it is unfortunate it doesn't always play off like I had hoped. Gameplay bugs make for some frustrating moments when you're in the heat of an awesome set piece. I mean, check this one out. I called in the waifu mobile, which had a rocket launcher attached to the front, James Bond style, as I had to race out an incoming hurricane. Fast and furious, I was driving through the crumbling world whilst blasting armoured vehicles that pursued me alongside this hurricane, which was awesome until the whole scenario kept stalling due to incredibly poor control. I'd turn the wheel just slightly and the entire car would spin out of control as if I was driving on a flippin' iceberg. Following on from this, I would drive off a cliff to then eject out of the car, grapple onto the wing of a rapidly declining aeroplane, followed by a sword fight on said wing, followed by popping off the heads of snipers on the main shaft to then grapple onto another passing plane in the midst of this hurricane. Now, you'd be lying if you didn't think this was just the coolest thing you could ever do, but unfortunately it was all just completely ruined by dropping frames and icons to grapple onto passing planes not appearing. This happened a few points in the game where I would obviously need to grapple to something but the icon just wouldn't show, meaning I would just have to kill myself or load the checkpoint to try again. It was moments like this that broke my enjoyment of what would have otherwise been some very gripping moments. I mean, if you're going to do a set piece, you'd do it like that. At one point there is also a forced stealth section where you roam the lands with nothing but a machete, and if seen, this results in an instant game over.
Stay completely hidden. Don't let them spot you. Okay, keep moving.
This section was the weakest part as it felt unnecessary in this style of game and just brought the pace to a complete standstill. Invisible walls and the lack of any stealth gameplay mechanics really prevented me from experimenting with this, so it wouldn't have made a difference if this section was just removed from the game altogether, although there are some pretty gratifying kill animations for a successful sneak attack. One thing that was dropped completely from this game was puzzles that were included in the prologue. The puzzle that we did have in the prologue, to be honest, didn't really make much logical sense in that I just had to rotate images on the floor to match up on a wall in some way, but it felt I was just moving them randomly until I got the right order, so maybe it is for the best these were completely dropped, as there wasn't much more room to amend the pacing. So as we draw towards the black hole, I encountered a couple of bosses which, to be honest, were pretty decent. To defeat these you must rely on the sword parrying system to weaken their stance. A little bit like Sekiro, I guess, as normal attacks and bullets will basically be blocked until the gauge is drained. I like this a lot and it made for some intense close combat fights until we got to this behemoth. I'll be honest, I did struggle a little with this boss and died a few times, but it was in no way frustrating. In fact, it gave me a glimpse of the possibilities and challenges I could be facing once we inevitably got sucked into this black hole and taken to whichever mythical land awaits, following this opening section of the game. And it was during this boss fight that I knew that, despite the technical issues and a plot with characters that are as flat as a tranquilized rug, I was digging it a lot. And then this happened. I'm not really someone who shouts at the TV much, but I'm surprised I didn't have the police knocking on my door due to a reported domestic attack. I like to take my time with games, check every nook and cranny, take in the rays of graphical fidelity every now and then, and with all that, it took me less than 2 hours to finish this. I was genuinely confused. I was convinced maybe this game was episodic, and that once the credits rolled, would be taken to the next episode. Didn't happen. My next thought was then, okay, maybe I did something wrong. The final cutscene did involve a quick time event, perhaps the game was playing me, and I should not have pressed those buttons. No, that was the end of that. I even had to go online and look to see if there was any more, and there wasn't. Now this raises a question. Does video game length really matter that much? Well, I mean, there are so many factors to take into consideration that it's not really an easy question to answer. Price, genre, gameplay replayability, story, and that goes both ways. A game can be too long just as much as it can be too short. But for me personally, with Bright Memory Infinite, given the nature of this game and what it offered, this is taking the piss. Don't tease baby with a lollipop to then take it away and shove it in your own mouth. This game really is what the prologue should have been 2 years ago, because despite it being called a full-length release, this is just a glorified tech demo. One that would have worked incredibly well in promoting the full release, but instead for the final product we are given a slice of a very tasty pie that when asking for more, you're told there is no more left because it was all thrown in the trash. There is some replayability here, in that there are higher difficulty levels to play through which unlock additional costumes, or challenges such as kill 80 enemies with a certain weapon to unlock a new weapon skin, but nothing changes in the core game itself, and for me, I don't enjoy that, although I do know a lot of people do enjoy that style of game. For me though, it was incredibly disappointing. But you could say, Nudge. If you thought the gameplay was so much fun and you had a good time with it, then what's the problem? Well, it is the fact this is not a full release. This is another prologue, in that if this is successful, we'll probably get another full release. And it is this kind of practice that makes it incredibly hard to recommend this game, even with everything impressive in this small package. I genuinely cannot think of something that has both impressed me and disappointed me before on this scale, at the same time. And then I saw it. The tipping point. Maths class is in session. If you were to pay the regular price for this game at £15.75, that would work out at around 15 pence per minute of gameplay if we say it takes on average 105 minutes to complete. Fairly expensive, but if I want to play through this game again in a hot bikini and a rainbow skinned gun, you want me to pay more? Hell no.